This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software like PDF Pen for Mac, PDF Pen Pro for Mac, PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander for Mac, and Text Expander for iPhone and iPad. Learn more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, yet again, we are on the road to Macstock, talking to the speakers and the presenters and everyone that's going to make this year's Macstock bigger and better than ever. In Woodstock, Illinois in July, we hope you will join us. This time, we get straight from the MacCast, Mr. Adam Christianson. Adam, it's good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you, Chuck. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Hey, I've got you on the show, so it's got to be great. Got to be great. So you heard the lead up. You know, we're trying to let everybody know kind of what people are going to be talking about. This year, Mike Potter has themed Macstock with productivity. And so far, the people we've talked to and the people I have scheduled to talk to, everybody's kind of taking a different approach to this. So what is your approach going to be to productivity?
To productivity, I'm going to be talking about text. And my talk's called The Power of Text. And it's going to be all about my transition to using Markdown in my kind of daily workflows. So it's going to be a little bit about my experience, like how I sort of came to start using it and how it slowly integrated its way to become an integral part of my production workflow on a day-to-day basis. And then I know this year we've got everything broken up into kind of two sessions. So there'll be an intro and there'll be kind of talking about that whole experience and process. And then the second half, the more deeper dive half, is going to be me talking about how more about the mechanics, right? How you use Markdown, what the syntax is, and tools that you can use on Mac and iOS to work with Markdown.
Okay, so for folks who don't know, what is Markdown?
So at a real basic level, Markdown is a text markup language. Anybody who's familiar with other markup languages like HTML, hypertext markup language, will probably understand the concept. But basically, you add additional characters or additional bits around text to infer or imply formatting, different kinds of formatting and markup. And there is a language that was developed by John Gruber, or a set of syntax that was originally developed by John Gruber from Daring Fireball to kind of do this. And it's since been extended and added onto in various ways and developed into a great way to basically write in just plain text, but be able to infer different kinds of formatting. So if you want something bold, there's some syntax for that. If you want something italicized, there's syntax for that. If you want a bulleted list, there's syntaxes for that. And what it allows you to do as a writer is focus completely on your writing, stay in writing mode. What I love about it is the ability to keep my hands on the keyboard. I never have to go to a menu. I never have to go outside of my keyboard to type something. But then later on, you can take that and you can run it through a processor or a parser, and then it will take that extra bit of code or those extra symbols, really, that markup, and process it into a formatted document in various formats. So if you want PDF, if you want HTML, if you want rich text format, if you want Word, you can do that later. So it kind of breaks up that whole process, and that's part of the advantage to it being built into a workflow that you might have.
So you're right. HTML, I think, is the perfect example, because if you've ever done that view source in your web browser and you look at all this gibberish and what is all this stuff, but if you boil it down, you can kind of start to see where the text is, the real text, and then the things that make it bold or italicized or turn it into a link or whatever.
Yeah. And unlike HTML, I mean, Markdown's even more simplified than that. And another part of it that is really great is that it doesn't get in the flow of the text. So you can hand somebody, unlike handing somebody an HTML document where they might have a hard time figuring out where the text is, where the paragraphs are, Markdown doesn't have that same sort of thing. You can hand someone a Markdown document that is unprocessed, that just has all of that syntax in it, they're still going to be able to read it. They might wonder, oh, this is a little weird here. Why are there a couple of hash marks here, and why are there a couple underscores there? But it doesn't really break the flow of the text. They could still understand the document. Whereas I think if you hand somebody an HTML page with all its formatting, they're going to have a little bit of a hard time. You can dig in and you can find, where the headings are and where the paragraphs are and where the text is, but it's a little more difficult there than it would be with like a Markdown document.
Well, in HTML, it seems like everybody's always throwing things into HTML or into the whole web page construction thing. So that is a pain. But
Markdown has a similar thing. I mean, like I said, it's been extended in many ways. There's different variants now of Markdown, and people have added their own things to do different stuff. So you can get really in depth. I know there's ways to do tables, and there's all kinds of formatting you can do. So it can get more complicated, just like HTML was. I mean, back in the day when HTML started, we basically had, bold, italic. You had very little formatting, and it's of course been extended and added on to with things like JavaScript and other languages and stuff like that.
So Adam, I've played with Markdown a little bit, but I guess I'll be anxious to learn from you how it has fit into your workflow.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the big part of it, right?
Yeah, because what it strikes me, I guess I'm trying to figure out the difference between doing the Markdown thing and learning the keyboard shortcuts in your favorite word processor, whether that's Word or Pages or whatever. It feels similar. And then instead of running it through the parser, like you said, just do exports to PDF or to, whatever.
Right.
Are there some concepts here that I'm missing?
Probably one of the biggest ones is portability. And the great example I like to give people is I will often, to this day, get emails from someone who says, hey, I found all these old floppies and I've got a bunch of stuff in AppleWorks, or I have a bunch of stuff in WordPerfect. How can I read this on my Mac? How can I get that content that I wrote back, my school, doctoral thesis that I wrote in WordPerfect back in the day? How do I extract that and get it? And there's not easy ways to do that. And so one of the big things that's powerful about Markdown is you start with a basic text document, right? It is just a text file, and text has been with us since the very beginning and probably is never going away. So, the idea that you will probably always be able to read that text document. So even if you parse it off into a PDF, I mean, PDF could die someday, Word might die someday, who knows? Those have been with us for a really long time too, and they may be with us for forever, but there's no guarantees. As long as you have it in simple ASCII plain text, chances are you're always going to have access to that content. So that's one advantage that I think that it has. There are a number of other ones that, again, I'm going to be talking about in my talk, and how you use it is going to be really different also depending upon what your workflows are. In my case, I'm a programmer, so I use it in some instances for some basic coding stuff. I use it in a lot of instances for documentation. I use it a lot when I'm capturing specifications and requirements for a job when I have a new client. So those are the ways that I use it. I know other people who are writers, they're writing books and they use it completely differently than I would. So that's the other thing about it is it has so many applications across so many different kinds of occupations or tasks that you might be doing. So, and a part of that again is because that portability, right? And it also opens you up to a lot of applications. So, if you're doing Word, you kind of have a couple of choices, right? You have maybe, forgetting the open source one, but you have Word itself, or you work in Pages, or you work in, one of the open source things that understands Word documents. And, that's only come about in the last few years. It used to be back in the day, if you had a Word document, you could only use it in Word. So with Markdown, because the basis of it is just text, there is a plethora of, you can open it up in just about anything, including like VI in the terminal if you really wanted to do that, right? So, or Emacs or whatever, whatever tool you want to use is going to be able to parse and read text. So people use it in amazing and very massively varied ways, I guess is what it comes down to.
Yeah, you went somewhere exactly where I was going to go. Is that who is this for? Because we know you as a programmer and a geek, and certainly your workflows are probably different than the business person or the average. I always say average, and I hate that because I don't know that there is an average user.
There isn't an average, yeah.
So there's the very technical user, and then there's the sort of technical user, and then there's the non-technical user. Is probably the way we need to categorize it. But it sounds like there is a place for Markdown in just about everybody's.
In every workflow, yeah. I mean, anybody if you write text, there's applications for workflow for you. Like if you ever have to write anything, then there are applications where it can probably benefit you. And that was the amazing thing about it for me when I discovered it, was learning that, and it worked its way in. I started using it in one area and it just expanded to the point where now I use it for almost everything. I mean, if I'm writing text, I'm writing Markdown. I'll find myself doing it in emails, And again, it's because if I ever want to extract that text and take it someplace else and add formatting to it, it makes it really easy for me to do that. And the person on the other end doesn't even really know that I've sent them Markdown. They're just like, oh, that's, he kind of, he put some extra characters around that thing, and that's like a title, right? And so even there, they can infer, oh, well, he's applied some extra formatting to that for some reason. Oh, there, it looks like that's the title of this paragraph, and there's the paragraph underneath it, right? So it's pretty cool. I fell in love with it. I do have to give credit to David Sparks, because he kind of was the guy who turned me on to it, because he started using it and was explaining it to me over a lunch one day, and I thought, I'll give this a shot. And I started with one area, and it, like I said, it's just worked its way into almost everything that I write now. I'm writing in Markdown.
So I think you alluded to it earlier, but are there specific tools that you need to use Markdown, or since this is text, can I just open up,
text edit
and go?
The Notes app, like you can start there, and then there are a plethora now of tools that can help you with it. They can help in real time parse the formatting so it feels more like a word processor. And again, we'll be talking about a lot of that stuff in my talk. I mean, that's what it's going to be all about, is, the journey and how you might use it and who might use it, which is really everybody. So I guess we gave a little bit of a hint as to, what we're going to be talking about. But then also, like I said, in the deep dive, moving into the actual syntax, and actual tools that you can use in and around Markdown. They're the ones that I use. And again, there's so many. I'm not going to be able to obviously cover all of them I think I have 40 minutes in the second half or something like that, 30 or 40 minutes. So we won't get to them all, but I'll probably share some of my favorite ones. And I'm sure there'll be people there. One of the great things about Macstock for people who are coming is there's going to be people there in the audience that are also going to have tools that I'm not going to know. I like going to these things because I learn just as much as I sort of teach when I go to something like Macstock. You have people in the audience who know as much, if maybe even not more, than I do about this stuff. I know Brett Terpstra is going to be there, and one of the tools we'll be covering is a tool that he wrote specifically for Markdown, and I know he's been using it for years too. So he knows a lot more about it than I do. It's going to be a little unnerving having him there in the audience. So hopefully I don't screw it up. But he's a great guy, and he's a perfect person to talk to about this kind of stuff, and he does all kinds of other great work. So the exposure to the kinds of people that you get at an event like Macstock, both from people like ourselves who are out there on a day-to-day basis, sort of in the public, quote unquote, sharing information, but even just the knowledge of the people who will be attending I'm always blown away by the kinds of jobs and things that they do and the stuff they do with their technology. And I learned so much from those people. And that's why I really like doing these things.
Yeah, I come back from Macstock, from any conference like this with well, not pages anymore, but documents full of notes of things I want to try, things I want to remember, things I've learned, and I have to be honest, a healthy portion of those things actually make it into my workflow. Obviously, some are not tools that I use every day, but it's something like, yeah, I learned that, or I remember that, or, and I need to go back and find that again because it applies to a new situation. So it's not just a case of the stage presentations, but it's the conversations over lunch, over dinner, in the hallways that are just as valuable as a lot of the stage presentations.
Exactly. I mean, almost more valuable. I always view kind of the stage presentations as a catalyst, really. I mean, that's what they're there for. They're a catalyst to kind of spark people's imaginations and ideas, and those lead to those follow-on conversations that happen in and around the conference itself. And all of that as an aggregate is where the value is. But I agree. You get just as much value out of the sessions as you do in.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of world-class software. At this point, I would usually tell you about one of Smile's great products, how I use them or how you might use them, about some of their more widely used features, or the power of the overall utility. But this month is different. Smile is celebrating 15 years of producing great products with a series of blog posts at blog.smilesoftware.com, and I think you should know about them. Some of the recent posts include Text Expander, a story of change and typing, Disk Label, memories of an icon, Products that weren't, Page Sender, a fact story. As you can tell, not every post is about a current product, but each provides some insight into how both computing and Smile have evolved over time into a pillar of Mac and iOS software development. While we all primarily base our purchasing decisions on price and function, I honestly believe that looking at the caliber of the developer producing the software should be an equally important part of the process, not just for support purposes, but also for longevity and innovation. If you were going to invest money and time into a piece of software and come to depend on it, you want to make sure it, and those who developed it, will be around for some time. If you agree, or even if you don't, you should check out all of Smile's great products for Mac and iOS at smilesoftware.com. You won't be disappointed. Happy birthday, and thanks to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of MacVoices. So, as I've been saying, and I want to try to give everybody a fair shake here, Mike Potter has given all of the speakers a special discount code that will get you the best price possible on Macstock. It's the equivalent to the very first early bird price that went out. So if you're listening to this, you can sign up using the code MacVoices, or you can use Adam's code, which is, that's your cue, Adam.
Well, I was going to see if you could guess it. It's MacCast.
What a surprise. So either MacVoices or MacCast, whichever one you use, will get you the best price on Macstock. And that's a full weekend of some really great presentations, 2 lunches, access to the Saturday night activity, and I don't even know what else that is planned because things are still rolling out. So
yeah, it's an amazing value for a conference. And if you at all have the ability to come out, I would encourage people to do so. I don't think I've ever talked to a single person who went and said, I don't think I got value out of this. Like everybody I hear from says, oh my gosh, this is great. A lot of us kind of view it as our replacement, unfortunately, for, I guess it's still on hiatus, right? iWorld, Macworld. They said they were putting it on hiatus, but it hasn't come back yet. So this is, for me, this is a big replacement for that. And actually, it takes kind of what I consider to be some of the best parts of Macworld, iWorld, which is the ability to really connect with people, because it's not a massive conference, right, where people go off in a million different directions. You're kind of all together there, and the events are kind of planned out, and you get a lot of interaction. And I really think that's where a lot of the value happens. So
yeah, I agree with you.
Encourage people to come.
And trying to convince people that you walk in, you stick out your hand and shake hands with someone. Nobody's going to bite you, and nobody's going to look down on you. You're all there with a common purpose, a common interest. And I don't know anybody that well, except maybe Allison, that has caused real trouble with Macstock, or that you don't want to talk to.
I'll be talking to Allison. She's awesome too.
Oh yeah, right. You're in California. You have to say that. So.
She is wonderful. She doesn't cause trouble. She is her own character. And there's a lot of characters there too, everybody attending is just, like you said, wonderful. No one's going to look down upon you. No one's going to judge you at all. The Mac community and Apple community has always been a very open and welcoming community. So, and it continues to be to this day. And I think that's exemplified by all of us, podcasters who have connected over this side of things. But, we all are on each other's shows and we all are at these events. And so, again, if you've ever just wanted to come out and say hi, it's a great opportunity to do so. And I always tell people, and sometimes I see people out of the corner of my eye kind of looking, but they don't seem to want to come over and say hi. And I usually try and invite them if I see it, but sometimes I don't. So if you are at the event and you want to talk to us, just come up and say hi. We're just normal people doing our daily thing too. So
yeah, who would have ever thought we would be intimidating? You're absolutely right. There should be no intimidation factor here because everybody knows something. Everybody can learn from each other. You got to take that first step to say hello.
Yeah, exactly. And again, a lot of the people that come to these things, I'm fascinated by the things that they do. I want to hear about how you use your Mac and what you do on a daily basis and what are your workflows, because again, I learn from those things. So if you don't come up and say hi, I don't get that opportunity. So I feel a little bit cheated. So
right. So it's folks, it's all your fault. If Adam doesn't get his value, it's your fault because you didn't go and say hello to him.
Yep, exactly.
Adam, right quick, as always, we want to let folks know where they can find you before, during, and after Macstock.
Sure. MacCast.com is my website. Also, you can just find the show MacCast on your favorite, podcast listening thing. I don't even know what to call them anymore. We used to call them podcatchers, but I was never good with that term. Just whatever you listen to podcasts on, search for MacCast, you'll find it there. And you can follow me on Twitter at MacCast.
Great. Adam, I look forward to seeing you as always. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it will be great. I'm looking forward to seeing you too.
Folks, we want to see you. Woodstock, Illinois, in July. Macstock2018.com is where you go to learn about everything, all the speakers that are going to be there. And, of course, use either the code MacVoices or MacCast to get the best price possible. And we'll see you there. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple Tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.